Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I was sitting outside a restaurant in New York City when a man came up and screamed, "Where are the Jews? I'm hunting the Jews. I'm ready to kill all of you." My heart started beating and I instantly froze. I looked up and saw this man. He was dressed in a hunting outfit and holding what seemed to be a pitchfork. He kept screaming, "Are you Jewish? Where are the Jews?" I never felt so scared in my life to be Jewish. My grandparents, who were both in the Holocaust, also warned me that this day may come again. Sadly, I have to admit that it has. A vacation to Florida took a darn horrible turn for the Oregon family when they said they had a run-in with a group of Jew haters. It was one of our Jewish holidays. We were visiting in Florida, Jamie said. We saw a white SUV. 4 people in the car rolled their windows down and were harassing the other Jews that were walking near us, yelling, "Free Palestine, F you Jews, die Jews." And here are some more. Joey Borgen, a Jew who was recently beaten in Manhattan for being Jewish. Yesterday, pro-Palestinian thugs attacked Jews in the Diamond District and threw off an incendiary device that exploded at Jews. Last night, pro-Palestinian thugs, nearly taking the play from Antifa, started assaulting Jews who were dining outside in Los Angeles. Throughout New York the past couple of days, pro-Palestinian, Jew-hating thugs have continued to attack Jews. In Los Angeles, a car waving a Palestinian flag was chasing down an Orthodox Jew. And remember, from their side, they're against Zionism. They're not anti-Semitic. On La Cienega in Los Angeles, a street that I took often, the heart of Beverly Hills, again, pro-Palestinian thugs first asked if there were any Jews. Some said yes, and then they attacked. For the past 10 days, Jew-hating attacks are up 500%. 500%. In addition to this, synagogues have been vandalized. The hate on social media is certainly paramount. I can't speak about today's news, but there were 0 stories in the New York Times and the Washington Post about this wave of Jew-hating attacks. But both websites currently have op-eds basically calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. Novelist Michael Chabon, who's Jewish, wrote in this Washington Post op-ed asking President Biden to call on him to cancel Israel's aid. A colleague of mine at a large synagogue suggested that MSNBC could be the most pervasive source of anti-Semitism. And after all, Emanu-El, who has the 2 o'clock show, someone who was suspended from NBC for lying about Israeli soldiers, interviewed the founder of the BDS movement yesterday. Again, as I said last week, this is the same network that allowed a guest to suggest that Hamas has fewer soldiers than the United States has engaged in genocidal wars without any follow-up. The Democratic left, sponsored by AOC and Bernie Sanders, is attempting to stop the sale of weapons to Israel. Congressional reps Mark Pocan and Betty McClellan are spreading a contemporary blood libel. And my mom made a great point last week. She said, make sure your congregation knows what a blood libel is. And for those who don't know, during the Middle Ages, Christians accuse Jews of kidnapping children and taking their blood to make matzah. This is a bevy of other Jew-hating incidents like the desecration of the sacrificial host. But what do they say? Is that Israel is indiscriminately murdering children. And Congressman Omar Minnesota said that any support for Israel is disgusting and immoral. I guess for her, I am disgusting and immoral. Thanks, Earl. This might be hard to hear, especially since the 1920s. Jewish people have always fought for justice. We are instrumental in the 5-day work week with unions. We fought for justice in a bevy of ways. And last summer, we saw our protests in the streets standing in solidarity regarding racial justice. But it pained me to see this, that the National Black Lives Matter issued the following statement. Black Lives Matter stands in solidarity with the Palestinians. We're a movement committed to ending settler colonialism in all forms, and will continue to advocate for Palestinian liberation, always have and always will be. I hate to be honest on the spot. I was expecting this reaction from left-leaning members of Congress. I expected MSNBC, CNN, the Washington Post, and other mainstream media outlets to indirectly incite and justify pro-Palestinian mobs. I expected the silence from the world. This too could be controversial, but I have an obligation to speak the truth. 500% increase of Jew-hating attacks. And nobody from this social justice 5 points faith group called us to offer their support and stand with us in solidarity. We haven't heard a word from any of us in this corner. Silence. As I said earlier, the ethos of our current society has allowed the mainstreaming of Jewish hatred. And so many people ask me, why is this happening? It's my sense that we are living in a new world with a new reality, which is frankly based on pseudo-academic nonsense. It's the people I went to college with 20-something years ago who would scream out various protesting, which was nonsense. Now these people are setting policy. It's the idea that Jews can't be victims anymore. Jews are white. Israel is a white supremacist state. And keep in mind that 60% of Israelis are Jews who come from Middle Eastern countries, who were expelled in 1948 from Middle Eastern countries. This new school says that any successful entity is therefore wrong, and by the means of that success came at the expense of persecuting others. Because Israel is successful, a thriving democracy, startup nation, its iteration in itself is a representation of this colonial mindset which should be eradicated. We can't reason with this. I could sit down with someone who hates Israel. I could do fact after fact after fact. I could argue that even in the 1967 war, when Israel recaptured Judea and Samaria, the Beit Knesset voted back to give it back to Jordan. And what did Jordan say? No, thank you. And Israel inherited 2 million once Jordanians. I could scream and list more data, facts and statistics, and to say that we, the Jewish people, based on the FBI in this country, are the most targeted group with regard to hate crimes. But it doesn't matter because we can't reason with nonsense. With the ceasefire coming to an end and these anti-Semitic ideas are now going to be mainstreamed all the more so. What is our response? We can turn off the TV. We don't need to read the New York Times or watch Rachel Maddow or an ardent Jew hater, Joanne Reed, or Andrea Mitchell. I think that's easy. But let me tell you where I think we must go, which is an internal search within the Jewish community, especially younger Jews. I feel that this congregation itself, we are proud Israel supporters. We love our indigenous homeland. We proudly have the Israeli flag. We look for future programming with Israel. Rabbi Grafman was instrumental in bringing Zionism to this congregation. So in a way, I feel that I am preaching to you the base. But let me ask you another question. What do we do with this? Over 90 U.S. rabbinical students signed a letter calling on American Jews to hold Israel accountable for its human rights abuses. These are the future Jewish leaders who are believing in Palestinian propaganda without looking at facts or the history. I see this especially in the Reform movement, replacing Torah for 1960s John Rawlism and social justice, where Jews will never be on the intersection. Earlier this afternoon, I got a call from a former friend in San Diego, and she said, "Adam, I need some help. I don't know what to do." At my daughter's school, it's Asian Appreciation Month, and each student is supposed to study an Asian country and present it to the class. Some kids got Fiji and other Asian countries, including Pakistan, which is technically in Asia. And then my heart was crushing. The teacher called my daughter and said, "The country that you'll report on is Palestine. Israel was not included." The teacher instructed the student, "Don't speak about the current conflict, but talk about how we got to the conflict and why there's these human rights." What are we supposed to do with that? 250 Google employees sent a letter to the officers demanding that Google stands in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and these are Jews who are asking for this. And on top of that, they are demanding that Google end all contracts and future business dealings in Israel. So what do we do? I wish I don't have to talk about this. I wish we can talk about other things and challenge our inner spiritual moments to make us more reflective. But this is a wake-up call. What do we do with those young Jews who not only have no connection to the state of Israel, but also see Israel as a white supremacist state? It's simply maddening. What do we do with young Jews who are so impressionable on the college campus? We are losing them daily. Our fight has to be here. And this is the toughest battle for the Jewish people that we are facing. And this battle is something that we cannot lose. I can tell you something. The recent fad on social media of posting a blue image, that blue image isn't going to bring justice to Sarah Halimi, Joseph Newman. That blue image that will be a trend for 36 hours won't intercept a rocket coming from Hamas. We don't have time for Jewish virtue signaling. As I speak to our incredible board members, our officers of brotherhood and sisterhood, we need your help. For us to make any difference, we have got to get to the young people and the young families. I don't care if we need to explain every detail, every nuance, every detailed perspective about Israel, but this is what needs to happen. Israel education and Israel advocacy must be the main focus for Temple Emanu-El and Jewish Birmingham moving forward. I'm a rabbi who likes evidence, and evidence tells us that Jewish summer camp and Israel engagement are the highest rates for Jewish identity in years to come. I need you, my partners, my board members, to help us with this endeavor. To our young families with kids in religious school, we need to hear from you. We want Israel to matter. I don't want them going to college, getting connected with organizations that seek to do harm with our Jewish state. You are the most important demographic. We need you so that Israel can be safe for our future generations. We need to stop the apathy, and we need to stop this illogical neutrality that so many Jewish organizations are taking. We need to chip away at this conversation that Israel is this oppressive state, these utter fallacies. We all have to do this together. We are Americans. We're American Jews, or we're Jewish Americans. It doesn't matter. I'm a proud American. Most of us, we're all proud of Americans. This is our home country. As I said earlier, we came here in 1654 to change the course for Jewish life. We've done a great job. But Israel is our ancestral homeland. It exists to be the land for our refuge. Unfortunately, I can promise you that there will be more attacks on the streets, thugs going after Jews. I know we are all angry. But soon our younger generation will ignore it, or even justify it if we do nothing. We can't afford it. As the ceasefire comes to an end and Israel claims victory of destroying 65 kilometers of tunnels and also Hamas infrastructure, we've got to get to the young families. This will be our greatest initiative moving forward. I can promise that I'll call on you, I'll meet with you, our demographics, but those young families, we have got to make a difference. Rabbi Grafman took a risk so many years ago of bringing Israel to this congregation. In honor of his incredible legacy, let us continue to do it. We need Israel, and Israel needs us. May God forever protect her. May God protect the Jewish people. Shabbat Shalom. We rise together.